The Senate chamber was packed. Reporters leaned forward, cameras rolling, waiting for the moment that would shake Washington to its core. The air was thick with tension. Something big was about to happen. Senator Ted Cruz sat still, his fingers interlocked on the desk before him. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with fire. He had waited for this moment. He had seen it coming. Now, it was time to speak. He rose slowly, his voice clear and firm. "My fellow Americans," he began, "something dangerous is happening in this country. The very foundation of our justice system is being ripped apart." Gasps filled the room. Some Democrats shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others smirked. Cruz raised a hand. "You may laugh now. You may ignore me. But what I am about to say will shake this nation. Mark my words. If this continues, America as we know it will not survive." Silence. A thick, heavy silence. Then from the back a woman's voice whispered, "God help us." No one knew yet, but this speech would change history. Cruz pulled out a folder, thick, heavy, full of secrets. The room tensed. Even his harshest critics leaned in. "For years," he said, "we have trusted our judges to rule fairly. But now, powerful forces are working behind the scenes, changing the system. Not with votes, not with laws, but with money and deception." Murmurs. A senator on the left side shook his head. "You don't believe me?" Cruz snapped. "Then explain this." He tossed a document onto the desk. The cameras zoomed in. A list of names, judges, lawyers, politicians, all linked to a shadowy network. A network controlled by those who wanted to twist justice to fit their own desires. The audience gasped. "These judges were not chosen for their wisdom," Cruz continued. "They were chosen to serve a political agenda, and now they are deciding the future of this country in secret meetings behind closed doors." The room erupted. Some shouted, some denied. Some sat frozen in fear. "This is not justice," Cruz roared. "This is control. This is the end of fairness in America." Then, from the back, an old man, a retired judge, stood up. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I was one of them." The room fell dead silent. The old judge's hands trembled as he stepped forward. He was once a respected man, a defender of justice. But now, his eyes were wet with regret. "Senator Cruz is right," he said, voice shaking. "I saw it happening, I was part of it, and I was too weak to stop it." A few senators gasped. Others exchanged nervous glances. "They told us it was for the good of the country," the judge continued. "They said we needed to reshape the courts, to make sure the right people made the decisions. But it was a lie. We weren't choosing justice. We were choosing power." Tears streamed down his wrinkled face. "I sat in those rooms. I watched as they silenced good men. I watched as they replaced honest judges with their own. And now, I can't sleep at night." Cruz walked over and placed a firm hand on the old man's shoulder. "Then tell them the truth," he said, "before it's too late." The judge nodded. He took a deep breath. Then he turned to the cameras. "America," he whispered, "you have been deceived." A collective gasp swept through the chamber. Outside, across the nation, millions of Americans sat frozen before their screens, their hearts pounding. This was only the beginning. The judge wiped his face, but the tears kept falling. "I was proud once," he whispered, "to wear these robes, to serve this country. But now I see that I was just a puppet." The room remained dead silent. No one dared to move. Some senators lowered their heads, others clenched their fists, their faces pale. "I sentenced good men," the judge continued. "I let criminals walk free because I was told to. I saw cases where the evidence was clear, but they told me how to rule. And I obeyed." A woman in the front row covered her mouth, her eyes welling with tears. "They promised me security. They promised me power, but they never told me about the cost." Cruz stepped forward, his voice sharp. "What was the cost, Judge?" The old man swallowed hard. He looked at the cameras. My soul, he whispered. Somewhere in America, an elderly veteran watching from his living room wiped his eyes. A widow in Texas gripped her late husband's picture, shaking with grief. Across the nation, people cried, not just for the judge, but for their country. Because now, they knew the truth. The room felt heavier than ever. The judge was trembling. He looked down at his hands as if he didn't recognize them anymore. I signed orders that destroyed lives, he admitted. Families were broken because of me. Innocent people lost everything. Cruz nodded solemnly. Tell them what you saw, he urged. The judge's breath was shaky. He looked at the senators, some glaring, some hiding their faces. They held meetings, he continued. Secret meetings. They decided cases before they even began. The verdicts weren't based on law. They were based on politics. A young staffer in the back wiped his eyes. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. Good judges resisted, the old man added, his voice cracking. But they paid the price. They were threatened. They were removed. Some were never heard from again. Gasps echoed through the chamber. A few senators whispered among themselves. Some were sweating. Cruz's jaw tightened. He turned to the cameras, addressing the American people directly. How much more are we willing to lose before we say enough? A single sob broke the silence. The old judge wiped his face again, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. I was warned not to speak, he admitted. They said if I did, my family would suffer. A chill ran through the room. So why are you speaking now? Cruz asked. The judge looked up. His voice broke. Because my wife begged me to. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled letter. She wrote this before she died, he whispered. She told me she couldn't live with the man I had become. She said she still loved me, but she couldn't stay and watch me destroy my own soul. A single tear slipped down his cheek. She told me to tell the truth even if it cost me everything. The room was drowning in emotion. Some senators wiped their faces. Others looked away, ashamed. Cruz put a hand over his heart. America deserves the truth. The judge nodded. Then let's give it to them. Outside, in homes across the country, people wept. They had seen corruption before, but never like this. And deep inside the Capitol, behind closed doors, a powerful figure was watching. Waiting. The real fight was just beginning. Somewhere deep inside the Capitol, behind a locked door, a man in a dark suit leaned forward. His face was calm, but his fingers tapped the desk, slow, deliberate, calculating. He had expected Cruz to make noise. But this was dangerous. He picked up the phone. It's time to remind them who's in control. Back in the Senate chamber, the judge held the letter close to his chest. His eyes were tired, his body weak, but his heart was stronger than ever. I have one more thing to say, he whispered. Cruz leaned in. I have proof. Gasps erupted. A senator on the left side shot up. This is ridiculous. Nothing this man says can be trusted. But the judge didn't flinch. I kept records, he said. They told me to destroy them, but I didn't. They are hidden where no one can reach them, except me. Cruz's heart pounded. This was bigger than he had thought. But somewhere outside that room, the man in the dark suit was already making his move. And the judge? He had just made himself a target. Cruz turned to the judge, his voice low. Where are the records? The judge opened his mouth, then stopped. His face changed. Fear. He looked past Cruz, past the senators, past the camera, and froze. Cruz followed his gaze. At the chamber entrance stood two men, tall, unsmiling, black suits, watching. The judge's hands trembled. They found me, he whispered. A cold wave swept through the room. Cruz clenched his fists. You're safe here, he assured, but the judge shook his head. No one is safe. And then, his phone rang. The old man stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. He swallowed hard, then picked up. Silence. Then a voice. Cold. Sharp. Stop talking, Judge, or you won't live to regret it. Click. The old judge slowly set the phone down. His face was pale. Cruz stepped forward. Judge, listen to me. But the old man just shook his head. They always find a way, Senator. And just like that, the room felt smaller. Because now, everyone knew. This wasn't just politics anymore. This was war. The judge closed his eyes. His breathing was shaky. Senator, I don't have much time, he whispered. Cruz's chest tightened. Don't say that. We'll protect you. The old man gave a weak smile. I'm already a dead man, Cruz. But I can still save this country. He pulled out a second letter, yellowed, creased, worn by time. My wife knew this day would come, he said softly. She left this for you. Cruz hesitated. Then, with steady hands, he unfolded the paper. The words inside made his heart stop. It wasn't just names. It wasn't just dates. It was a confession, a full account of every corrupt case, every secret deal, every law twisted for power, signed by the people behind it. It was enough to shake the nation, enough to bring them down. Cruz looked up, his eyes burning. We take this to the people. But the judge grabbed his arm. Senator, they won't let you. And at that moment, outside the chamber doors, footsteps echoed. Heavy, purposeful, coming straight for them. The heavy footsteps grew louder. Cruz turned sharply. The judge's breath quickened. Across the chamber, senators glanced nervously at the doors. Then, bang! The doors flew open. 2 men stepped inside. Not reporters, not staff, not security. They wore suits. Their expressions were blank, but their eyes were sharp, scanning the room like wolves hunting prey. The judge gripped Cruz's arm. His whole body was trembling now. It's them, he whispered. Cruz squared his shoulders. This is the United States Senate chamber. You have no right to be here. One of the men smirked. We just have some questions for the judge, he said smoothly. He's not answering anything without legal protection, Cruz shot back. The men exchanged glances. One of them reached into his coat. The room tensed. But before anyone could react, a voice rang out. Stand down. Everyone turned. And there, standing in the doorway, was a man no one expected. The man in the doorway stepped forward, his presence commanding. He was older, but his sharp gaze cut through the room like a blade. It was Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice. A hush fell over the chamber. Even the 2 suited men stiffened. Justice Thomas, Cruz breathed. The judge exhaled, a tear slipping down his cheek. God sent you? Justice Thomas nodded. I heard everything, he said, his voice steady. And I won't let this stand. The men in suits hesitated. Then one of them smirked. This is above your pay grade, Justice. A dangerous silence filled the room. Justice Thomas took another step forward. This is America, he said coldly, and you are trespassing in its highest hall of justice. The tension was suffocating. The 2 men exchanged glances. Then, without another word, they turned and left. The doors slammed shut behind them. The chamber remained frozen. Justice Thomas turned to Cruz. Get the letter to the people. Cruz nodded. How? The old judge coughed weakly. He was fading. My wife. She left instructions, he whispered. His hands shook as he handed Cruz a small key. Find the box, he said, before they do. Cruz clutched the key, his heart pounding. Because now he knew. This letter wasn't just a confession. It was the key to everything. The judge's breathing grew weaker. Cruz knelt beside him. Stay with me, Judge. The old man smiled faintly. I always knew. The truth would come out. His fingers tightened around Cruz's hand. My wife was right. I spent my life serving the wrong masters, but now, I serve the truth. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Tell them, Cruz. he whispered. "Tell them before it's too late." Cruz nodded, his throat tight. "I will." The judge's eyes drifted to Justice Thomas. "Thank you for standing with me." Justice Thomas bowed his head. "Rest now, my friend." The judge exhaled. And then, silence. A single sob broke from a woman in the back. Justice Thomas closed his eyes. Cruz clenched his fists. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. Cruz stood up slowly, the small key burning in his palm. The judge's lifeless body rested in the chair, his face peaceful, like a man who had finally escaped his torment. Justice Thomas placed a hand on Cruz's shoulder. "There's no turning back now." Cruz nodded. "We have to move fast." But before they could take another step, the chamber doors swung open again. This time, reporters flooded in, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. "Senator Cruz, is it true the judge was threatened? Did he have evidence against the administration? What happens next?" Cruz turned to Justice Thomas. "We have to get out of here," he whispered. But then, another voice rang out. "Senator Cruz isn't going anywhere." The room fell silent, and stepping into the chamber flanked by security was none other than Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. His eyes locked onto Cruz. His face was calm, but the weight behind his words was anything but. "You're playing a dangerous game, Senator," Schumer said smoothly. "And I'm here to tell you, you won't win." The air grew thick with tension. Cruz clenched his jaw. "You already lost, Schumer. The truth is out." Schumer chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Oh, Ted, truth has never mattered in this town. Perception does. And right now, you look like a man chasing ghosts." He turned to the reporters. "A disgraced judge makes wild accusations and dies of a weak heart. Tragic, but hardly shocking." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Cruz stepped forward. "The American people won't buy your lies." Schumer smiled. "Who said they have to?" He leaned in. "All I need is enough doubt. A little spin, a little distraction. By next week, this will be forgotten." Cruz felt the rage boiling inside him. "You think you can bury this?" Schumer shrugged. "The only question is, will you bury yourself along with it?" Cruz narrowed his eyes. "I'm not afraid of you." Schumer smirked. "Oh, I know." He glanced at the reporters. "But is your family?" A chill ran down Cruz's spine. Schumer clapped him on the shoulder. "Think about it, Ted. Some fights aren't worth the cost." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Cruz standing in the storm, gripping the judge's key like a lifeline. Cruz barely slept that night. The judge was dead. The media was spinning lies, and now his own family was in danger, but he couldn't stop. Not now. He sat at his desk, staring at the small key. The judge's final words echoed in his head. "Find the box before they do." A soft knock on the door. Cruz grabbed his gun and stood. "Who is it?" A familiar voice. "It's me, Tucker." Cruz exhaled. He unlocked the door. Tucker Carlson stepped in, closing it behind him. His face was tense. "I saw the news," he said. "Tell me everything." Cruz handed him the judge's letter. Tucker's eyes scanned the page, widening with every line. "My God," he whispered. "This isn't just corruption. This is a coup." Cruz nodded. Tucker sat down, rubbing his face. "We need to get this to the people." Cruz gripped the key. "And I need to find the proof before they destroy it." Tucker met his eyes. "Then we better move fast." Outside, a black car sat parked in the shadows, and inside it, a man in a dark suit spoke into a phone. "They're making their move." A pause. "We'll be ready." The next morning, Cruz and Tucker drove in silence. The judge's key sat between them, small yet powerful. According to the letter, the box was hidden in a small church outside D.C., the same church where the judge's wife was buried. As they pulled into the empty parking lot, Cruz's gut tightened. If I were them, I'd have someone watching this place, Tucker muttered. Cruz nodded. We'll have to be quick. They entered the old church, the scent of aged wood and candle wax thick in the air. The judge's instructions were clear, underneath the third pew on the left. Cruz dropped to his knees, feeling along the wood until, click, a hidden compartment. Inside was a small metal box, rusted but intact. Cruz's hands shook as he used the key. The lid creaked open, and there, inside, were dozens of files, names, transactions, recordings. The truth. Tucker let out a slow whistle. This will bring the whole house down. But before they could celebrate, bang! The church doors burst open. Armed men in suits stormed inside. Drop it, Cruz. The trap had been set, and they had walked straight into it. Cruz stood slowly, gripping the box. The lead agent aimed his gun. You don't understand what you're holding, Senator. Tucker scoffed. Oh, we understand perfectly. The agent's finger twitched. Hand it over. Cruz's mind raced. There was no way out, except one. You shoot me and the world knows, he said calmly. We already made copies. The agent hesitated. You're bluffing. Tucker grinned. Try us. Silence. Then, a new voice echoed through the church. Put the guns down. Everyone turned, and there, walking down the aisle, was Justice Clarence Thomas, flanked by 3 federal marshals. The lead agent paled. This is classified DOJ business, sir. Justice Thomas's eyes burned with authority. Not anymore. He pulled out a document and handed it to the agent. As of this morning, the Supreme Court has ordered an independent investigation into judicial interference. Any attempt to seize that evidence will be considered treason. The room tensed. The agent hesitated, then slowly lowered his gun. The others followed. Tucker let out a shaky breath. Cruz clutched the box, his heart pounding. Justice Thomas nodded. Now let's show the world the truth. The next day, Cruz and Tucker sat before millions of Americans. The files were released. The media exploded. The names inside the box, judges, senators, CEOs, even a former president. For the first time, the people saw the corruption hidden in plain sight. And they were furious. Protests erupted. Officials resigned. Arrests were made. But some fights never end easily. One night, Cruz's phone rang. A familiar, cold voice whispered, "You think you've won? This game never ends." Click. Cruz exhaled. He wasn't afraid anymore. He looked at the camera. The people decide how this ends, not them. Justice Thomas placed a hand on his shoulder. The judge would be proud. Tucker grinned. And you, Senator, just made history. Cruz turned back to the cameras. America, the fight isn't over. We need your voice, your power, your courage. He paused. If you stand for justice, like this video, share it, and tell us in the comments, do you believe the truth will win? And across the nation, a movement was born. The judge's final words echoed in their hearts. The truth will not die.